Hey people on the internet, if you did not know, my name is Ruth, this is Kindle Reads, and today I want to bring you a review of The New Jim Crow by Michelle Alexander. It is, in a sense, a cautionary tale, but not so much a tale, but an actuality as far as the effects of mass incarceration and why, in a sense, it's this generation's Jim Crow, how it adversely affects the African American community. So, yeah, let's get into the review. Mass incarceration. I would like to know what comes to your mind when you hear that terminology or actuality, since mass incarceration, of course, is when you have a massive amount of people being incarcerated, which is what you presently have in the United States. But what people group do you think fills this jail cell or these penitentiaries? And that is what the topic matter of this new Jim Crow is, and how detrimental it is, and how it sets a whole people group into a new caste system once they've been quote unquote labeled a felon, which a lot of people are labeled a felon for having small amounts of illegal narcotics, whether it be cannabis, cocaine, etc., etc., and what that actually means. It talks about the financial gains that have been gained by the state for pursuing illegal drugs. As far as this war on drugs, it talks about the private prison systems and how they benefit from mass incarceration. And it also gives a wonderful introduction, which kind of brings in the author, Miss Alexander, into a very human way. She just talks to you like a regular person who has the same reserve and hesitation to kind of label mass incarceration as the new Jim Crow. And I think with that hesitation, I think she kind of brings you in to be like, yeah, I do have a little bit of hesitation to kind of be so forthwith with the wrongs of mass incarceration, since I don't know what that is. And then she goes into telling you what mass incarceration is, how the incarceration numbers have jumped since 1970, and what is the new caste system. She goes into the lockdown, the color of justice, the new Jim Crow, which basically puts together everything that she is trying to argumentatively tell you about mass incarceration. And let me tell you, she does a great job of arguing her point by giving you these relatable stories, by humanizing mass incarceration, by giving actual human stories of how people have been caught in the system, even people who have been innocent. Talking about how the prosecutors have discriminatory rights as far as pre-selection when it comes to a jury, how they're able to stack convictions even for things that legally they would not be able to prove in the court of law, but since they have, quote unquote, as long as they have reasonable doubts that you might be involved in something, they're allowed to charge you with it, and how that kind of affects people actually pleading guilty for crimes that they're not guilty of. And the book goes into all of that, and that's why I feel like this is such an important read. The book was published in 2012, and without a doubt, after finishing the book, I can say if she were to rewrite this book in 2017, nothing would actually have changed, since there isn't a great moral conscience on mass incarceration and how it's affecting one people group versus another. It talks about the dangers of the colorblind system. Since people claim to be quote unquote colorblind, they don't actually see the crimes being committed against a certain people group of color. It's slightly crazy and very believable, especially again if you look at our incarceration rates, which have maintained their healthy growth since the war on drugs has started. The book goes also into how the war on drugs benefits the state and why the state is probably not going to relinquish a lot of this unless there is a big conscious change on what mass incarceration does. It also talks about why the civil rights movement hasn't really attacked the quote-unquote mass incarceration, because people who are mass incarcerated or who are quote-unquote felons are not the quote-unquote picture boys or girls to present to the media to kind of pull this moral conscience into the wrongs of what mass incarceration does. This book is just phenomenal, and I definitely give the book a 5 out of 5. I definitely think there are certain chapters that are more heavier than others, like chapter 2 and chapter 3, which goes into the legal ramifications and cases that have been proven to have kind of hold back the system on actually showing these discriminatory actions by prosecutors and by police officers, and how the system has upheld this prejudice against one people group versus the other by claiming the colorblindness of both parties, even though there are things that are contradictory to that, and it goes into what is the big hoopla and why legally it's been so difficult to kind of dissemble or dismantle this mass incarceration setup that we presently have in the United States. I already told you guys I just give the book a 5 out of 5. I would literally gush. There's so much information. Like, it's hard to not talk about this book without giving such great information. It's very a factual book. I think, like I said, the more human elements are definitely in the introduction when she kind of presents her side of understanding the mass incarceration, what was her reserves, and I think chapter 5 and 6, which goes into more, like I said, human stories of actually putting together some of the legal proceedings and how they affect normal everyday people. Other than that, if you guys have any questions about my review, or you guys want a more detailed version of the review as far as me getting into certain chapters, if you've read the book, please let me know. Of course, we can do a discussion on the new Jim Crow. I'll probably do a live show sometime later this week, if not next week, since there's construction going on around my home, going into the book in detail as far as specific examples that I really want to bring out, and of course heard several video footages that kind of prove and disprove, which is why I said if this book was written literally in 2017 versus 2012, it would not change at all. This is such a good book. Pick it up if you do have the chance. February is around the corner, which of course is Black History Month. So if you would like to make this one of your Black History Month reads, I would highly suggest it. Eye-opening, and believe me, this is something that will get you talking quite a lot internally with your family members, with friends, with people that you meet on the street, especially people that you meet on the internet. It's definitely going to get you talking with all the facts and proofs about oppression, especially within the Black community. Other than that, I have nothing else to say. Go get the book if you have the opportunity to go and get the book. And I will catch you guys on the next one. Peace.